I bet we all remember where we were when Hurricane Katrina hit back in 2005.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Those images, just the devastation and the sheer scale of it all. It's something that you just don't forget.
Right, and I think it was such a pivotal moment, not just for New Orleans, but for the whole country, you know?
For sure.
It was a stark reminder of the power of nature, but also maybe, the fragility of the systems that we rely on.
Yeah, exactly. And amidst all that chaos, there's this story of incredible resilience that I feel like often gets overlooked, and it's the final days of Charity Hospital in New Orleans.
Wow.
So try to imagine this, a nearly 300-year-old institution dedicated to providing free healthcare to everyone facing its ultimate test.
Yeah, what a story.
So today we're going to deep dive into its legacy using this really captivating book called Charity.
Okay.
And we've also got a documentary and even some firsthand accounts from the hospital staff who were there and lived through it all.
That's incredible. It's a fascinating case study, I think, in dedication and improvisation, but, also that unwavering commitment to care, even when facing these just unimaginable circumstances.
Exactly. And then to add another layer to our exploration of care, we're going to shift gears a bit later and travel back to the Wild West.
Okay.
We're going to meet Del Burke, and she was a madam who ran Wyoming's legendary Yellow Hotel. And her story might surprise you. And it raises some really thought-provoking questions about how care can manifest in the most unexpected ways.
I love that, yeah.
So if you're intrigued by untold stories of human strength and compassion, then you definitely want to stick with us for this deep dive.
I think what's particularly compelling is the contrast between these two stories.
Right.
We have a centuries-old institution facing this modern-day disaster.
Yeah.
And then we have a woman navigating the complexities of the Wild West.
Totally.
Both in their own way challenge our assumptions about where care originates and how it takes shape.
All right, let's start with Charity Hospital, founded in the 1700s by a Frenchman named Jean-Louis. This place had seen it all. Can you believe that it was one of the oldest hospitals in the U.S.?
Wow.
It's rivaled only by Bellevue in New York City.
What's remarkable is that Charity wasn't just a building,
Right.
It was the cornerstone of this really unique system of free healthcare that spanned across Louisiana,
Yeah.
a true safety net, for the most vulnerable people. And it was really the only system of its kind in the entire U.S. at the time.
It's almost unfathomable to think about in today's healthcare landscape, isn't it?
Oh, for sure.
To think that for nearly 300 years, this institution provided care to anyone who walked through its doors, regardless of their ability to pay.
Yeah.
We're not talking about subpar care either.
Right.
This was a place known for its excellence, its commitment to tackling even the most complex cases.
Absolutely. Charity staff treated over 1,000 patients every day, handling everything from rare diseases to these, severe injuries. And they even had this motto, where the unusual occurs and miracles happen,
I love that.
which I think really speaks volumes about the kind of environment they fostered.
For sure.
One where innovation and compassion went hand in hand.
And then Hurricane Katrina hits, and we all remember those news images, the city submerged underwater.
Oh, yeah.
But what was actually happening inside Charity during those really harrowing days?
Well, the hospital staff, they were used to hurricanes, but Katrina was in a whole different category.
Right.
It quickly escalated to a Category 5 hurricane, trapping over 1,300 people,
Right.
staff and patients alike, inside the hospital walls.
That's incredible.
And the storm's intensity was so powerful that it even induced labor in several pregnant patients.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine being there?
Yeah, the pressure they must have been under.
It's almost surreal to think about babies being born amidst this terrifying natural disaster.
Yeah,
And as if the storm itself wasn't enough, then the power goes out.
right.
I mean, they had backup generators, of
Yeah.
course, but
But one of those generators was destroyed by the storm.
oh no.
So now you've got the situation where nurses are having to manually ventilate patients
Wow.
for hours on end. Just imagine the physical and mental toll that must have taken on them.
Yeah, it's hard to even comprehend.
They were literally keeping people alive, breath by breath.
There's this story about the staff running a 300-foot extension cord to a Coke machine just to power some of the ventilators.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Talk about thinking outside the box under some serious pressure.
I know, it really shows their resourcefulness and their sheer determination to keep their patients alive. They were facing this crisis, but their training kicked in,
Right.
and they did whatever they had to do.
And then the levees break.
And that's when the real nightmare begins.
Oh, gosh.
The floodwaters started rising so quickly, and Charity's basement, which housed the entire power grid, was completely submerged.
Oh, no.
The irony is that they had repeatedly requested funding to move that power grid to a higher floor, but those requests were denied.
So now they're completely cut off from the outside world. Communication systems are down. The floodwaters are rising.
Right.
I even read that they resorted to using bed sheets to write SOS messages, hoping that someone would see them from the air.
Yeah.
What must have been going through their minds at that point?
I can only imagine fear, definitely, but also this profound sense of duty.
Yeah.
These healthcare professionals knew they were the only lifeline for their patients.
Right.
Couldn't give up.
I read that they even used a resident's canoe that he had brought in as a joke before the storm
Really?
to transport these premature babies to safety.
Wow, that's incredible.
But it ended up being this crucial part of their evacuation efforts.
I can't even imagine navigating those floodwaters in a canoe with these tiny, fragile infants.
That image is just seared into my brain, and they even performed a C-section by flashlight
Right.
and did this life-saving procedure in the back of a moving truck.
Wow.
Talk about adaptability and resilience.
It's really a testament to the human spirit.
Yeah.
These individuals had every reason to panic, to give up. But they didn't. They just kept improvising and putting their patients' needs above their own, even as the world around them was literally falling apart.
It's a truly inspiring story of dedication and perseverance.
It really is.
Sadly, 8 ICU patients didn't make it,
Yeah.
but over 240 others survived because of the heroic efforts of that charity hospital staff.
It's a bittersweet victory for sure, a testament to their skill and their compassion,
Yeah.
but also a stark reminder of the tragic loss of life that occurred.
For sure. And what makes it even more poignant is that Charity Hospital never reopened after Katrina.
Wow.
They built a new modern hospital,
Right.
but it's no longer free, and it doesn't even carry the name Charity anymore.
That's really sad.
It's a stark contrast, and it really raises some questions about the nature of care in our society.
Yeah.
What happens when institutions like Charity, with their deep-rooted commitment to serving the most vulnerable, are lost or transformed?
Right.
Is something fundamental lost in that transition?
It's a complex issue and one that I think deserves careful consideration.
I agree.
But before we delve into that, maybe let's shift gears a bit and travel back in time to the Wild West.
Okay.
Are you ready for a different kind of story about care?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's hear about Dill Burke and her legendary Yellow Hotel. I'm ready to have my assumptions challenged.
Okay, great. Delberg's story is fascinating, isn't it?
It really is.
It challenges our ideas about the Wild West, for sure, and maybe even human nature itself.
Totally.
You have this woman escaping an abusive marriage, trying to build a new life,
Yeah.
and she ends up running a brothel.
Right.
But then it becomes the surprisingly important part of her community.
That's what's so interesting.
Yeah.
It's amazing how resilient she was.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, first she makes this fortune as a dance hall girl in Alaska. We're talking the equivalent of $300,000 in today's money.
Wow.
And then she ends up in Lusk, Wyoming.
Mm.
And I read that she actually chose the town because she misread Lusk as lust.
That's the story that's been passed down.
That's so funny.
But whether it was intentional or not, it definitely adds a layer of irony to her story.
It really does.
But Dell was a very savvy businesswoman.
She was.
Lusk was in a strategic location near a railroad and an oil pipeline and a uranium mine.
So she knew what she was doing.
Yeah, she saw an opportunity and just took it.
That's great.
Yeah.
So she was smart about the location. She understood her clientele.
Right.
But it sounds like she also just knew how to run a business.
Oh, yeah.
She didn't just open any old brothel.
No, she didn't.
The Yellow Hotel was known for its elegance and its discretion.
That's right. Fine furnishings, conservative dress for the employees.
So classy.
Dell understood that image was important, especially in a town that might have been conflicted, about her line of work.
Of course.
She wanted to project this air of respectability.
She wanted to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how she navigated those social contradictions.
It is.
On the one hand, she's running a brothel, but on the other, she becomes a member of the Chamber of Commerce,
Wow.
like a pillar of the community.
And her generosity, it went beyond just the business world.
Really?
Dell was known for contributing to churches and charities.
That's amazing.
She even helped struggling families during the Depression,
How did she help them?
providing food and jobs,
So thoughtful.
And there are even stories of her discreetly funding college tuition for some local students.
So this picture emerges where she's this successful entrepreneur,
Yeah.
but also this discreet madam,
Right.
but then also this surprisingly generous benefactor.
Yeah.
It makes you think about the assumptions that we make about people based on their professions.
It does.
Can we really compartmentalize people's lives like that?
It's a good question. It's a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
And it becomes even more interesting when you think about how Dell lived her own life.
Okay, so how did she live?
In Lusk, she was reserved, almost reclusive.
But I thought she was a socialite.
Yeah, but when she traveled with her handyman boyfriend...
She had a boyfriend.
Yeah, she had a boyfriend. And when they traveled, she embraced a much more, glamorous lifestyle.
How?
Fine clothes, fancy hotels.
She liked the finer things in life.
It seems like she really enjoyed a taste of the high life.
So she had these two different sides to her personality.
Yeah.
The reserved businesswoman in Lusk,
Right.
and then this more flamboyant woman she was when she was away.
It must have been difficult to balance those two sides.
It really must have.
Yeah, it speaks to her ability to adapt, I think. To adapt to different environments, to navigate the social expectations of the time.
And I read that she also remained really close to her family.
She did.
Throughout her life, even though they seemingly had no idea what she actually did for work.
Imagine their surprise when they found out.
Oh my gosh. Talk about a family secret.
But it also shows that she really valued those family ties. Even though she had chosen this unconventional path.
It adds this whole other human dimension to her story. It reminds us that even people who live outside of what society considers normal still want connection and they want to belong.
I think that's right.
Dell's story, it challenges us to look beyond labels.
Yeah.
And to really consider, how complex human motivation is and how complex human relationships are.
Exactly.
The Yellow Hotel operated for an incredible 60 years.
Wow.
It became a real fixture in Wyoming's history.
It did.
And then eventually it fell into disrepair,
Right.
and the town burned it down.
That seems like a sad ending.
It does seem a bit melancholic.
But the town of Lusk, they eventually embraced Dell's legacy.
They did.
They recognized that, beyond the brothel,
Mm-hmm.
that she had been a shrewd businesswoman and a generous community member.
And in a way, she was a symbol of a bygone era.
That's true.
Her estate sale was legendary.
It was.
3,000 people showed up.
Wow, that's twice the town's population.
I know.
That's incredible.
People were paying hundreds of dollars for a room key.
Seriously.
Thousands of dollars for a velvet wall.
I guess it became like a cultural event.
Yeah.
Almost a celebration of Del Burke.
And what she represented.
Yeah, even the people who might not have approved of her profession when she was alive.
Right.
They recognized her impact.
Yeah.
Her unique place in Luska's history.
So she became a legend.
I guess so.
Her story is just woven into the town itself.
That's amazing.
It's fascinating how our perspective on people and events can shift over time.
It really is. It highlights how important context is.
Yeah.
And how important it is to understand the complexities of history.
Right.
We can't judge the past based on our values today.
We can't.
We have to consider the social norms back then.
Right.
And the economic realities.
Of course.
And all the individual stories that shaped those times.
Totally.
Both Charity Hospital and Del Burke challenged societal expectations in their own ways.
I did.
One, a bastion of free healthcare in a system that's more and more driven by profit.
It is.
And the other, this madam who becomes a pillar of her community.
It's true. Their stories really make you think about where we find care and who provides it.
They do.
It strikes me that even though these stories are so different
Yeah.
and separated by time and circumstance, they both highlight these unexpected ways that care can show up.
That's a really great point. I think we often have this very, narrow definition of what care should look like. We think of hospitals or charities or families.
Right.
But both Charity Hospital and Del Burke, they challenge that.
They do.
They show us that care can emerge in these unconventional ways.
For sure.
And that it's often driven by individuals who are genuinely prioritizing the well-being of others.
Yeah.
Even when they're operating outside of, what we consider normal.
Totally. It's like they both created their own institutions of care.
Yeah.
Charity with its centuries-old dedication to free health care.
Right.
And then Dell with her acts of generosity and support for her community.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, how these figures reshape our understanding of what it means to belong to a community.
Totally.
And what it means to contribute to a community and to care for one another.
I wonder if maybe we've boxed ourselves in with our definitions of what a community should be.
Maybe.
And how it should function.
Possibly, yeah.
Maybe true community comes about when we step outside those boxes.
Right.
And find these authentic ways to connect with each other and support each other.
I think that's a really powerful idea, and it makes us think about our own roles in creating, a more caring world.
Absolutely.
And a more resilient world, too.
For sure. And it doesn't have to be these grand gestures
Yeah.
or heroic feats.
Not at all. Sometimes the most meaningful acts of care are these small, everyday things.
Exactly, like just offering a helping hand to someone, or
Yes,
listening with empathy,
absolutely.
or just showing up for someone when they're in need.
It's those seemingly small actions that can really make a difference.
Yeah.
They have this ripple effect. They can really create a more compassionate and interconnected community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as we go about our lives, let's think about how we can each, in our own way, contribute to a world where care and resilience are not just the exception,
Yeah.
but they're the norm.
I love that.
That's a really thought-provoking note to end on. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Of course.
We hope it sparked some new ideas for you
Yeah, me too.
and inspired you to maybe look for those unexpected expressions of care
Right.
in your own communities.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.